unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello and welcome. It's the end of hump day. You can just send your friends a camel emoji. There's one with one hump and one with two. You're welcome. A quick update from my cat. He's been sleeping in the window all day, which means he might engage in a reign of terror tonight. Sleep all day, annoy all night, which, come to think of it, is a bit of a metaphor for me in this show. I digress. Tonight's lineup's going to be a fantastic one. Now, as adults, making friends can be a little rough. So I'll be joined by a comedian to walk you through how to do it, how to find your squad. It's not rocket surgery or brain science. That was stupid. But it's simple steps to develop ritual and community, and we're going to have fun with it and give you those helpful tips, because it's not so easy when you're older to make friends, is it? That will do in about 10 minutes' time. Later in the hour, the secret to happiness is different for different kinds of people. At least that's according to a new study. Does it come from big changes in your life, or does it come from your mindset? Or both, or neither. We'll break down why joy is complicated, and how to crack the code to happiness, and why some things work for some people and not others. Anyway, that is merely just a small cross-section of the show. Tonight's going to be a great one, so let's dive in, shall we?
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
So there I was, sitting in my apartment, doom-scrolling and regretting all my life choices, when I came across a headline that made me spit out my recently reheated by the microwave coffee. I know, I'm disgusting. The headline? Boy uses mother's phone to order 70,000 dum-dum suckers. This, my friends, is not a prank. This is a young child embarking on a logistical operation. That is a sugar-based supply chain crisis. Here's what happened. In Kentucky, an 8-year-old boy named Liam decided, while fiddling with his mom's phone, to buy enough dum-dum suckers to either stock a carnival or cause one. I bet the kid wanted to throw a neighborhood fair and thought, you know what screams fun? A candy-based economic collapse. And to the boy, his mother, probably the whole family's surprise, 22 giant cases of lollipops showed up at the family's door not long after. No warning, no receipt. Just $4,000 worth of sticky chaos sitting on their porch like it was sent by the Tooth Fairy's shady cousin. The Cavity Wizard? Now his mom, to her credit, tried to cancel the order, but Amazon said no. Because if Jeff Bezos loves anything, it's teaching people expensive lessons about screen locks. And money. He loves money. And yachts, probably. After looking into it, the mother found out that not all the boxes that were ordered came. Because every now and then, the Postal Service needs to go to the dentist, or just take a break, or they just have problems delivering things. Eventually, the mom tracked down the rest of the lollipops and tried her best to return the suckers to sender. She did get the money back for the order after a day of phone calls, stress, and almost certainly some wine. I mean, she had to talk to Amazon and the bank and get them to do something, well, a little out of the normal. That's like surviving the bureaucratic version of the movie Saw. Now, after the ordeal, all is well. She's updated her phone settings so her enterprising child can no longer use her device to launch a sugar cartel. And you know what? I say give the kid credit. He dreamed big, he believed in generosity, and he tried to throw a lollipop carnival in this economy, which is more than I've done this week. I mean, I'm guessing he tried to throw one. I'm using creative liberty here. Me personally, I'm just grateful my mom never gave me her credit card growing up. Otherwise, I'd still be explaining to the bank why I tried to buy a bouncy castle and 800 live frogs back in '96. When do you think the last time someone was impaled at the Roman Colosseum was? 2,000 years ago during a gladiator fight? Was it Russell Crowe's golden years? No, it was Friday. Last Friday. Not like a random ancient Rome Friday. We're talking last week. A 47-year-old American tourist was visiting Rome when he decided the best way to honor ancient history was by climbing the spiked iron fence around the Colosseum. Why? To take a photo. Because of course. Because nothing says preserving cultural heritage quite like climbing it like it's a jungle gym in your nephew's backyard. People do anything for Instagram these days. So he hoists himself up on this fence like he's trying to sneak into a punk show. He slips and he ends up getting impaled through the spine. This was not an audition for Cirque du Stupid. Get it? I'm proud of that one. Anyway, he's just hanging there, like a cocktail olive on a very sad toothpick. And this continues for about 20 minutes. He's screaming in pain. And he doesn't stop screaming. Which impressive stamina. I scream when I have to bend over to tie my shoes. Anyway, emergency workers arrive and they have to sedate him before they can even get him off the spike, to calm him down. And it took more than 20 minutes just to unshish kebab him. He lost a lot of blood. They rushed him to the hospital. And there he gets surgery and more than 80 stitches. That's a photo op gone wrong. Now, the man couldn't speak for a few hours after the incident, which frankly might be the first good decision he made all day, though authorities questioned him once he could talk again. And while it's still unclear exactly why he thought climbing a deadly fence was smart, we do know he was on vacation with family and friends. And his friends, when asked, had no idea what happened. Which makes me think either they dared him and are now playing dumb, or they saw what happened and immediately went, nope, not our circus, not our Roman tragedy, we're not getting involved. An eyewitness told the press, it was terrible. I saw that the man was impaled on a railing and he couldn't free himself. Which, yeah. The whole thing's awful. Funny, but awful. And technically, that's how impalement works. You don't just shimmy off like it's a slip and slide. Now here's the thing. No charges have been filed. Yet. Maybe the police think his injuries were punishment enough. But damaging and tampering with Rome's historic landmarks is a big deal. Last year, 2 teens intelligently carved their names into the Colosseum, and now they're facing up to 5 years in jail and 15,000 euros in fines. Which is a stiff punishment, but if you can't respect the Colosseum, you don't deserve the pasta, or pasta. I don't know what my accent is anymore. Did I grow up saying pasta and now I say pasta? Drama? I digress. Back to the story. So let's talk about this for a second. What is it with American tourists and this need to climb things? I don't see Italians scaling Mount Rushmore just to take a selfie on Lincoln's nose. And if your photo requires breaking the law, risking your life, putting emergency responders in a situation where they have to treat you like a human lawn dart, you're doing it wrong. Stop climbing monuments. It's not a CrossFit obstacle course. It's not something for TikTok. It's a World Heritage Site. I'll get off my soapbox. Besides, you know what makes a great photo? Standing in front of the Colosseum, smiling like a normal human being, not hanging from it like you lost a bet in a Roman frat hazing ritual. You want an epic vacation pic? Photoshop yourself in. At a sunset. No one needs to know you were actually in a parking lot eating a sandwich. Okay, I'll really get off my soapbox now. Anyway, the rest of us will be here on the ground, hopefully admiring ruins from a safe, legal, unimpaled distance. Because that's how you should show respect for history. And how to keep all your internal organs exactly where they belong. Like what you hear, but you're not going to be with us the whole night, or you missed a show and you want to get caught up. Good news, the last show is available as a podcast. Just head to www.lastshow.pizza. That's lastshow.pizza, not .com. And there you can find out more about our podcast, how to subscribe, or check out our social media. Okay, coming up after the break, the question a lot of us loners, well, I'm a loner, maybe you're not, but a question I think a lot of us could do well finding out the answer to: how to make friends as an adult. We'll tackle that in a few moments. See you on the other side of the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. We're broadcasting relationship truths and scientific discoveries with a comedian's touch. The Last Show with David Cooper.
As an adult, one thing can be extremely difficult that's a little easier as a kid: friend making. So we're here to discuss that with comedian, screenwriter, and author and co-host of the podcast, Man of the Year, Aaron Karo. Aaron, what a pleasure it is to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
My goodness. I usually just ask people if they want to be my friend, ask for their phone number, and then text them too much, and then they stop texting me back. That's my way of doing it. Do you have struggles as an adult making friends?
I feel like you've got half of it right, because you are getting the numbers and asking people to be your friend. You're just texting. I mean, the second part is just a problem.
I have been told by women that my personality is birth control. I feel like my personality prevents me from making friends as well.
Well, I mean, your personality is birth control. It doesn't really get much better or worse than that.
Yeah, 100% effective.
but you are, very gregarious.
Okay.
So that's pretty good.
Yes.
So that's pretty good. And because the problem is, as you kind of hit on it, is that when you're kids, like, friends are just there. Like, you're having literal play dates set by your mom. You're in school. You're living in a dorm. And then once you graduate college, that's the big inflection point.
Wait. I didn't really have a lot of friends as a kid, and my parents kind of didn't pay attention to me. Do I have them to blame for being a loner?
You probably do, because it's all about modeling behavior. So my parents are actually they have so many friends. My dad talks on the phone to his buddies every day. And I think that's what's helped me become an apex friend.
My parents did that, but I was the youngest of four in an accident. Okay, let's take 100 steps back. What got you thinking about adult friend making in the first place?
So I'm part of the world's greatest friendship tradition. You're going to be jealous of this. I have the same 9 friends from elementary school. I'm from Long Island, suburb of New York. And every year on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving, the 9 of us all gather at this restaurant in Brooklyn called Peter Luger's. And we have this raucous Friendsgiving dinner. And then we vote on which friend had the best year.
Wow.
And then our winner wins a giant Man of the Year trophy. It's like half a Stanley Cup. You get your name engraved on the trophy, and you keep the trophy for the rest of the year.
Can I come next year? Side note.
Absolutely not. And so this is our 22nd annual dinner this fall. And so that's kept our friend group going strong for all these years. And so of the 9 of us, 2 of us are comedy writers in LA, me and my best friend, Matt Ritter. And so we started a podcast called Man of the Year, which is about friendship.
Love it. I do Friendsgiving on American Thanksgiving, being a Canadian, and all my friends who either are foreigners and don't have the tradition, or people who don't go home for Thanksgiving for whatever reason, they assemble at my house. And we got a dedicated crew. I guess we do it 2 days after you. But I cook duck every year because I think turkey's a BS bird. There's a reason people only eat turkey once a year. I just eat it one less than that. And, these traditions are important. And they make us feel like we're part of a community, don't they?
So you've hit on something great, which is the importance of rituals, which is a lot of people have friends, they just don't see them. And so what you have, David, is that on this day, every year, your buddies are going to come over. And so there's taking the guesswork out of it. There's no, I can't make it this year. I can't do this. Now, what would be great is if you did something that was more than annual. So you could see these people more than once a year.
I do, but not like that. Not like your 9 buddies, Man of the Year structure. Everyone's coming. We're doing this thing. But it's not like these friendships go to, they what's the word? They wither and die.
But a lot of people, for a lot of guys, they do. If they don't have their fantasy football thing, they just never call their friends ever again because men are idiots.
Well, yes, full stop on that one. So you and I guess I kind of opened pretending I didn't have friends and this, that, and the other, and nobody likes me. But you and I kind of do certain things right. When you break it down to maintain those 9 buddies, what are some of the things you can do as an adult to keep your friends around? Because we all get busy. We got kids, we got families, we got whatever. I like watching TV in bed. I don't like going out anymore. How can we water our friendships?
Well, and I mean, I think you hit on something there at the end, which is that number one, we need to recognize that friendships are important. So many men, especially when they hit middle age, are just like, David, he'll be around. I'll see him whenever. I've got a wife, I've got a kid. It's not that big a deal. And we're here to tell people, me and Matt, that actually it is important because as you know, there's an epidemic of loneliness. 15% of American men have zero friends, which I'm sure it's similar in Canada. And so men are waking up and they're realizing they have no buddies, and it's leading to depression and also a lot of stress and pressure on the wife or the partner, right? Your wife or your partner doesn't need to be also your best friend. That's what your bros are for. And they can't be everything to you. They can't be your romantic partner and also deal with all your bullshit. And so the first step is to just actually recognize that you do need friends and then keep in touch with them.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. We have a text chain and you say, oh, well, that's very, very, very obvious. You know how many guys don't text their friends and have their friends even know they want to hang out?
Yeah, the group thread is so important. The group chat, as the young kids call it.
And we try to ritualize the rituals, right? So your Friendsgiving dinner.
Yes.
Does it have a name? Is this Friendsgiving dinner?
No, I should give it a name, shouldn't I?
It makes the ritual stickier. You give it a name. You make T-shirts. You change the group chat. You create traditions. This year, everyone's got to bring a story from the past year. That way, people are less likely to give up on the tradition.
Things are centered around duck. Like this year, I'm thinking of doing a beef tenderloin because I don't know, I'm kind of sick of duck, but I'll have some duck themed thing on the table. It's like a Ducksgiving. Maybe that's what I should call it.
It should be called Ducksgiving. You should change the group chat right now to Ducksgiving. You should make hats. I actually love this.
Okay. And we have a group chat, but like there's only one person who keeps it active all year. We should all try a little bit more. What about if you find yourself, I feel like Americans, being a Canadian living in the US, Americans just like change cities every 5 years. It's insane. I didn't really observe this growing up in Canada. It seems like Americans move all the time. My dad always said that about Americans before I lived here. He's like, they move a lot. I didn't believe him. What if you find yourself in a new place without that community, without that friends, but really wanting something like your Man of the Year dinner?
So here's your first step when you move to a new city. It's a very common thing. Reach out to your friends in the city that you just left and ask them, you're laughing. I haven't even told you.
I'm laughing because it's so simple, but people don't do it.
Exactly. And ask them, do you know anyone in Chicago?
Yeah.
Do you know anyone in Vancouver? Because I'm moving.
That's literally what I did. I said, I know we're just kind of acquaintances and I know you think I'm a bit annoying, but we're sort of friends. Do you have anyone I would like? You know?
But also, let's ask your actual friends. I mean, you could ask the people who don't think you're annoying in any city.
Who are these people?
I mean, I don't know. This is conversation. We're only 4 minutes in and I'm pretty annoyed, but no, I'm joking. It's asking your buddies or your parents or anybody, hey, I'm moving to X. We say 2 words, know anyone. And then, cause you're going to get warm leads of people who are already there instead of making, fresh friends. So that's step one.
When you say warm leads, it makes it feel like a job, but really you need to be investing and working towards keeping friends like it's a job as an adult.
It's the same thing as a romantic relationship. Like you would never just, never date ever again because you moved to a new city. Or if you met a potential romantic person, you would never text them again and say, oh, I'll see them eventually at the bar. You have to think of it less of a job and more as like a relationship.
It sounds a bit off, but treat friend making like a romantic relationship. Like, should I be kissing my buddies? I don't really understand.
Well, the beauty of it is it's so much less pressure. Mm-hmm. You're not looking for the one, you're looking for a one. And what I mean by that is you gotta, reach out quickly if you meet someone new. People like, if you meet a girl or a guy, whatever, like you don't just never speak to them again in a romantic sense. Just use that rapidness in your platonic relationships.
I'm here with Karo, a comedian, a screenwriter, an author. He co-hosts the podcast Man of the Year. Check that out wherever podcasts are found. Aaron, you've touched on something I really like here. Friend making when you've come to a new city or you're in a new environment or maybe your group of friends all moved away. I think that's something very common that adults face, and we'll talk more about that after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888 505 6644. Your nightly dose of unfiltered opinions and unexpected conversations. The Last Show with David Cooper.
If you're if you find yourself in a new place, blow on friends. There are things you can do as an adult. We are here to discuss that with Karo, a comedian, screenwriter, and author. He co-hosts the podcast Man of the Year. Check that out. Aaron, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much.
There's a really good piece in the CBC that you're in that describes how to make friends as adults. I asked you the question, how do you do it when you've moved to a new place? Because I've moved cities as an adult 3 times, and it's the same process, and you think it's going to be easy, and it never is.
Yeah, and right. So as we discussed, first step, ask your other friends if they know people in this new city. And the second thing is look at fringe friends. So we try to get our guys to go from fringe friends to binge friends, random acquaintances to people you hang out with all the time. So what is a fringe friend? A fringe friend is, we say anybody, they know your name and you know their name and you see them maybe once a month. So coworker, neighbor, person at the gym, bartender, your barber. I'm buddies with my barber now. And then once you've identified who your fringe friends are, let's try to level them up.
Yeah, I'm friends with my barber too.
Wow, I'm surprised you even have a barber.
Thank you. Being on Propecia, I'll take that as a compliment. It's funny, those hangouts with the fringe friends that don't work, I never regret. I've done probably 20, 30 hangouts in my life with someone who I thought I could be friends with, and it was like oil and water, and we never spoke again afterward, but I don't regret it. Because you really do have to put yourself out there as an adult. You're not in school as a kid, forced around little kids or your parents setting you up on play dates. You really have to make that effort.
Yeah, and I think that you got to go on a few, we call mandates before you find the right person. So just like doing something with your fringe friend, even if it didn't work out, I also feel like it's like you're getting your reps in and you get better at it.
Before the break, I was talking about how I'm a Canadian living in the U.S., and it seems like Americans move cities all the time. I didn't experience that growing up in Toronto. Like, I feel like Canadians don't change cities and pack up and move quite the same as Americans.
So, I don't know if I am an outlier because I've basically only lived in 2 places, New York and LA, my entire life besides college.
Are there 2 other places? According to those who live in those 2 cities, maybe not.
No, and I will never go anywhere else. I'm stuck in the two best cities anyway. But I'm curious, like Canadian friendship, like since you've lived in the States now for a spell, is it different? Do you notice any differences?
Growing up and then being like in my 20s in Toronto, all my friends are just the people I grew up with.
But is that pretty common?
I think so, but I also think a lot of people move to Toronto, so maybe my experience isn't the same. But yeah, this idea of like being anxious that you're going to lose a friend because you both moved and you're not in your hometown. I never experienced that growing up. I don't know if that's a hometown thing or a Canadian thing, but I certainly had that when I lived in San Francisco. It's a very transient city. People come in and then they leave. They work in big tech. They leave. So I was always worried that my close friends would leave. And then they always did. And then I thought I'm never going to do that. And then I did it. So I don't know if that answers the Canadian question, but that was my experience.
Do Canadian bros like rag on each other like we do here?
Yes. We have our own love language. We have our own curse words. We have our own like cultural points of reference. In some sense, we have our own sports because it's so hockey dominated in a way in the US that it's spread across football and basketball and baseball. Yes, I'd say we have that, but the language is a bit different.
Because again, this is obviously a stereotype that the Canadians are very nice. So you would think that maybe they're not ripping into each other as much.
You've never met my mother. Canadians are not. They're not all nice.
And when you go out with your buddies in Toronto, wherever you are your buddies wingmanning you? Are they helping you get laid? Like, how is that?
Come on. Yeah. I feel like that's universal.
Yeah. Universal. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I mean, who knows what they do in Beijing? Maybe it's like not appropriate to wingman your buddies. I don't know.
Maybe it's not.
And what about female friends? You have female platonic Canadian friends?
Yes. I was never someone that had like a heavily gendered friend group. Like if I had a bachelor party, if I got married again, there would be straight women in my bachelor party.
Where was your first bachelor party?
I eloped. I didn't have one.
Oh my God, that's a real red flag.
Yeah, I called my Jewish mother the next day to tell her I got married. That went well.
Whose decision was it?
To elope?
Yeah.
What do you mean, both of us? What are you talking about?
Well, maybe was she pressuring you?
No.
So you just didn't want to do a wedding?
Well, yeah, I wasn't getting along with my family. You know, it was.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I see. So that's the issue there, right?
I love my mom to death. We're best friends now,
Yeah.
but I wasn't talking to her back then. It was a whole thing.
Got it. And were your buddies like, what the?
Yeah, yes. A lot of people are like, why didn't you invite me? I only invited like people I had just met in the city I just moved to. So.
Oh, so you eloped with? That's not really eloping. You eloped with new friends.
Yeah. I invited like 3 people that I had met in the past month to City Hall.
What?
They all showed up, and it was my ex-wife and 3 friends that I just met.
And do you still talk to those 3 friends?
One I can't stand. One I don't talk to for reasons I won't discuss. One is one of my closest friends.
What a strange man. What a strange.
Yeah, here you are with like your 9 bros, just bros. You know, we're going to Peter Luger, a steakhouse every year, and we're making trophies. I'm a little different than you, Aaron.
I just can't imagine, not having my buddies at my wedding. Like because I'm the last single one, so I've been to all their weddings. Even second one. I mean, I'm getting lapped, David. My buddy got married twice already.
Yeah.
And so even just for punishment, they should be coming to my wedding.
Yes. At the same time, I didn't want to invite anyone who I was close with, because then I'd have to invite them all. Like, I told my brother to come, and he said, I can't do it, man, because by not inviting mom and your friends and everything, I don't want to cause any, you know what. I guess I can say shit on my own show.
And did you have an now I'm just asking you about your wedding.
That's
we
fine.
can go back to friendship, but do you have any inkling at the moment at the city hall where you're like, ooh, this might not work?
No, I was like, this is great. I was like the happiest day of my life up until that point. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Wow. Interesting. Because I usually put, I have a couple buddies who haven't eloped, but have had the really, really, I'm doing air quotes for
small
the listeners, really small, I was only invited to the post wedding drinks, post city. And I'm like, if it's this small, there's a reason.
Are you single, Aaron?
I am.
Okay, so you're this expert in adult friend making, but have you done it through the lens of being living with another person, a romantic partner?
Well, yes. I mean, we have a lot. Well, have I done? I've actually never lived with a woman.
Here you are giving all these great tips about friend making, but your life circumstances aren't as challenging for other people who live with another person.
Well, I mean, I counterpoint. That's wrong. People who live with a romantic partner actually have a leg up in friendship because they literally have someone they could go out with, who they meet people. Your romantic partner has friends, and this friend has husbands, and
yeah, you're right.
They have coworkers. I mean, what are you talking about? It's complete nonsense.
I've set my girlfriend up on friend dates with people who I thought she'd be good with, and she's done the same for me. So you're right. Fine.
Yeah.
Are there any tips we missed as adults making friends to just make the process a little easier, a little more, a little less anxiety inducing, a little more demystified?
When you meet a friend, this person does not need to be everything to you. You don't need to meet a best friend tomorrow. You need activity partners, and you need someone to hang out with. So if you have a buddy who you're not super jazzed about, but they like the Winnipeg Jets and you like the Winnipeg Jets, and you can go to a game once a month, boom. That's great. If you've got a buddy who really likes sushi and your other, people don't like it, and that's what you're going to do, and you're he's going to be your sushi friend, that is good. Your friend doesn't have to be everything to you.
Interesting. I like musicals. I got to find a musical friend.
Yes, exactly. And that musical friend might not be the same guy you and your girlfriend go on double dates with, but that's okay.
Yeah. It might not be the guy I go to, I don't know, a MMA fight with either. Not that I like MMA, but you get the point.
Yeah, exactly.
Aaron Karo is a comedian, a screenwriter, and author. Check out his podcast, Man of the Year, where he describes which of his friends is the man of the year.
So the man of the year is the inspiration. That is our annual vote on which of our friends had the best year. But the pod is about helping men make friends and be better friends.
I love that. Where can people find out more about you online?
So manoftheyearpodcast.com, Man of the Year Podcast on all socials. And me, it's Aaron Karo, AaronKaro. And if there's any single Canadian women, DMs are open.
Aaron, it was a pleasure getting to know you.
Thanks, David.
After the break, the secret to happiness. Kind of straightforward, and it changes depending on who you are. That's according to new research. Research summarized as being the secret to happiness. Does it lie within you? Does it lie within society? Or a little bit of both? We'll be back with that in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Good news! Research has solved the secret to happiness. Kind of, sorta, maybe. A new study says happiness comes from your life, your mindset, or both, or maybe neither. Psychologist Dr. Emorie Beck from the University of California, Davis, a professor there, is here to explain why joy is complicated and maybe not as simple as we thought. Emorie, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I feel like I saw a headline summarizing your paper that included the phrase secret to happiness. As an academic, were you happy to see your work summarized like that?
Not particularly. I think our goal with the work was just to highlight that there's a lot of different ways to be happy. If you want to call that a secret, then I guess you can. But I don't think that that is actually that surprising to any of us. I think we've all known for a long time that what makes me happy may not make you happy. And, whatever ad infinitum you want to add.
I feel like it's the secret to being really healthy and having a great body. It's like diet and nutrition. We know that already.
Yeah.
And I feel like these elements we already kind of know. But cracking that code, is it like solving a Rubik's Cube while skydiving, or is it just breaking it down into some basic structures here that people can follow?
I mean, I think right now the goal is to try to break it down into these basic structures. I'm sure that what's, sort of happening under the hood is actually much more complicated than our current sort of tools allow us to address. But all we really wanted to do was sort of try to find a way that we could sort of operationalize, these different ways that we can all be happy. And maybe you're going to see yourself in that. And maybe whenever you see yourself in that, you actually learn something about how it is you can improve your life and make yourself happier and even maybe help the people around you.
So let's talk about these structures or models. One's called top down, one's called bottom up, one's called bidirectional. Can you explain these to listeners who, don't read academic papers? No offense to those who do.
So it's actually pretty simple. So decades of research in the science of well-being has basically sort of been arguing about what are our determinants of happiness. In other words, what makes us happy? And so for a long time, people thought it was sort of this rose-colored glasses kind of, perspective where I am just generally happy. And therefore, even if things aren't that great in my life, I have bad relationships or things aren't going great at work, I still sort of see those domains actually as, relatively good. And I'm still satisfied with my life on the whole. So that sort of global sense I have about how happy I am is kind of bleeding out or trickling down into these domains of my life. But we all know that these things that happen in our life can actually be really, really impactful. And so a sort of alternative perspective arose that was actually more bottom up. And by bottom up, what I mean is when I think about how happy I am in general, I'm actually sort of almost summing different domains of my life. So I'm summing up how happy I am at work, how happy I am in my relationships, how happy I am with my living situation. And maybe I'm weighting those a little bit differently depending on how important they are to me. But really how generally happy I am is just a function of these contexts in my life. So really the exact kind of flip of that more top-down perspective.
Interesting.
But the trick was researchers were finding evidence for both of those. And that didn't really make sense. And so then that sort of gave rise to this idea of bidirectional, where it can be a little bit of both. We have to some degree this kind of stable sense of how generally happy we are that bleeds into our domains. But also if things happen in your life, that's also going to sort of, come up and actually impact our overall levels of happiness. And these were always treated as one of these has to be true. Not all of them can be true. It has to be bottom up for everyone. It has to be top down for everyone, or it has to be bidirectional for everyone.
I get to use a big word here that I know. It was a false dichotomy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Sorry, keep going.
And so anyway, all we wanted to do was say it's a false dichotomy. And it was never about one of these being true. In fact, the question is actually for whom is each of these true? In other words, you might be a more bottom-up person, and I might be a more top-down person, and someone else we know might be more bidirectional. And we don't really necessarily have a way of kind of establishing that. And so our goal with this study was just almost proof of concept. If we can take existing long-term longitudinal study and actually demonstrate that across time, people show more distinct bottom-up, top-down, or bidirectional patterns, then this sort of validates this idea that it is the for whom question that I think kind of opens up a whole new kind of generation of ways of thinking about how do we make ourselves happy?
It's kind of interesting because people swear by certain things. Like we live in a fix yourself culture. Like, oh, if only you could
Yes.
get out of your job. If only you could meditate more, you'd be happy. If you just come to yoga class with me, you'll be a happier person. And that might work for some people, but not for others. And we see that
Yeah.
like in the self-help world. Certain books really strike a chord, and when people follow those things, they feel happier. Others follow the same steps and like, what, this is all so silly. Does that kind of
Yeah.
map with what you're seeing, like different paths for different people?
Definitely. So one thing that we talk about in sort of like the psychology and I guess just more of the science space is this idea of fat-handed interventions. And basically what that means is it's a one-size-fits-all approach. So we assume that mindfulness meditation actually is the solution to happiness. And therefore, if everyone would just meditate, we could fix the world. And that's a little bit of a ridiculous concept because if you think about, folks around the world who are dealing with wars and, all sorts of other like awful events, telling someone to meditate is, I think, just really out of touch.
It's like, hey, I just want to be safe and know where my next meal's coming from. Leave me alone,
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, we also know people who are always looking for that next thing, who are like, if I just quit my job, if I just get this thing, if I just have this event happen, then I will finally be happy. But that person is actually never happy. That event comes, they make more money, they get a different job, they get a different partner, and the grass is never greener on the other side.
I've lived that life and now I don't. And it's an interesting shift,
Yeah.
You feel like always attaining that next thing. And then once you get it, you're on to the next one.
Yeah. And it actually wasn't as meaningful. It actually wasn't as impactful. You're still not happy.
For those who chase that next thing, maybe it's mindfulness, whatever, are those more top-down people? Are those more bottom-up people? Are they fitting in? How do they fit into this map of how, like, things that make people happy?
So we think of people kind of chasing the next thing. And by next thing, I mean like the next job, the next whatever thing that's supposed to fix them. That's a little bit more bottom up. It's sort of if you change your circumstances, then that should change your happiness. But the sort of like mindfulness example, I think, kind of falls in a little bit of a weirder spot where it's a little bit more top down in the sense of if we think about the ultimate goal of mindfulness, it's to sort of shift your mindset towards this sort of like non-grasping of your thoughts and emotions that should allow you to sort of like better navigate your everyday experience and just, sort of be more present in your everyday life, which, we'd think of as sort of maybe actually ultimately shifting that more sort of top down perspective where it allows me to be more sort of grateful for the things that are happening by noticing everything from birds chirping, to other sort of like small micro pieces of joy that we can pick up. So that's sort of, I think, the distinction that I think of with those two.
Most of your work is breaking down these categories. Are there places or groups of people that you looked at who are generally happier than others that we could all be learning from?
So in this study, we didn't actually end up sort of like looking at like among these people who were the happiest. This was just sort of the validation of do people differ in sort of like the sources of their happiness. But we are working on some follow-up studies now where we're trying to sort of dig in of like, what are people who are actually happier and are bottom-up doing versus what are people who are actually happier and more top-down doing, and are the bidirectional people just the lucky ones among us where everything works for them.
Can you give us early results, early tips, anything people can...
I mean, so we are not collecting those data yet. That's going to be happening this summer. I actually have a student coming to my lab from Germany who's going to be sort of conducting a lot of this research, which we're really excited about. If you want sort of like my suggestions, at least based on what we know now,
Sure.
I think even without, me having collected decades of longitudinal data like we had in this study, that you can sort of look at your own life and probably start getting a bit of a sense of whether you're a more top-down and bottom-up person, which then can at least sort of like lead you towards some better options for what might actually improve your life. So if you are the person who, has felt like you've been on the grind, always looking for the next thing, and that next promotion, that next job, that next relationship, that next whatever is not doing it for you, you probably have a pretty good signal that you're actually a top-down person trying bottom-up strategies.
Interesting.
And so that's a good, sort of signal that maybe it's time to try everything from gratitude journaling to...
I was just thinking gratitude journaling.
Yeah. And actually, fun fact, gratitude journaling actually started at UC Davis with a professor, Bob Emmons. So kind of a fun full circle for me doing this work now.
It certainly does. Well, Dr. Emorie Beck is a psychology professor at the University of California, Davis. Emorie, thank you for joining me today. This was a good chat.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
After the break, it's our weekly look at conspiracy theories, and we'll go back in time, almost 100 years ago, when America was almost overthrown and turned into a fascist dictatorship from within. No one talks about this, but we will. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
breaking down today's chaos with tomorrow's headlines. The Last Show with David Cooper.
It is Conspiracy Corner. We are joined by conspiracy studies professor at Humber Polytechnic and co-host of the Uncover Up podcast and alleged. Is it alleged or alleged?
I think it depends on how fancy you are. It's like striped and stripe head.
Oh, or potato. Let's call the whole thing off. We are discussing coups and fascist dictatorships in our history. And we will end, well, no, actually, Nathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
What an introduction.
Not bad.
This is why I'm the best in the biz. Fascist dictatorships being installed in countries is a thing that has happened in the history of countries, probably.
I mean, again, you're following up the introduction in very strongly, I think.
I am well researched. I actually do have good notes on what we're going to talk about, believe it or not.
Yeah, no, I completely.
But it's like putting, an idiot who's just got their driver's license at the helm of a Ferrari. They don't know what they're doing. That's like me in my notes.
Okay. I mean, if you've got Ferrari-style notes, I'm very impressed.
Well,
I've got maybe like Yugo-style notes or old beat-up VW Bug-style notes myself.
Tell me about the history of coups, because it's something we hear about. I remember during the pandemic, there was a woman dancing in Myanmar. Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah. That video was wild.
Oh, my God. It's like nothing you've ever seen before. It was like a woman dancing to kind of a banger. It's like I think it's a Filipino song or something.
Oh, no, the song slapped and her moves were tight.
And it was just like a regular YouTube TikTok style dancing video. But behind her was the parliament of Myanmar. And it's like, gated off like any parliament would be. And all of a sudden, all these military trucks come and this woman's doing like a dance video. And the military trucks get to the gates and the officers there just kind of let them in. And they head for the parliament. And that was the beginning of a military coup that is still in power to this day.
And the amazing thing about that video, and I'm glad you brought it up, because it does show us something extremely important about coups, is that a day can start normal and then turn extremely bizarre. Your country can start the day as a democracy and end it as a military dictatorship. This can happen. We become extremely comfortable. We almost become bored with democracy because democracy is kind of irritating. We got these 4-year terms. They encourage short-term thinking and planning. We're always in election mode these days. We got election fatigue. We just had an election in Canada. People were complaining about the commercials.
And who likes that dude everyone voted for? No one.
Exactly. Politicians try to be entertainers.
And it is always a dude, isn't it, in North America?
Almost always.
Well, I know Canada had a woman as a prime minister for like a second, but
not an elected one, though.
Exactly.
And so, we become cynical and lots of people don't bother voting at all. And it's like,
I got to say, I do like the Mexican president. Scheinbaum, she's all right. I like her.
Yeah. No, she spit some fire. I agree. So we got this democracy. It's a fragile system. And it relies to a large degree on unspoken conventions and traditions and habits. And those seem like they're carved in stone, but they aren't. None of this is carved in stone. There's all sorts of ways that a democracy can be threatened. And there are often real conspiracies that threaten democracies. I mean, false conspiracies threaten democracies by confusing people and disinformation campaigns. We've talked about that lots of times. But there are often real conspiracies because the most direct way to wreck a democracy is through a straight-up military coup, and we've had no shortage of those over the years. And a lot of the ones that happened in the second half of the 20th century were actually backed by the CIA.
Well, the military has the weapons, so if anyone can pull it off, it stands to reason it would be the group in the country that has all the weapons.
Yeah, I mean, it's the difference between soft power and hard power. You got soft power, which are laws and traditions and that kind of thing. And then you got the hard power.
This is a family show, Nathan. This is a family show.
And then you got the throbbing power, but we won't get into that.
All right, give me some examples of coups that happened in the last century or before.
Okay, Iran, 1953. They had a functioning democracy. They were going along very nicely. They had elected a guy called Mohammad Mossadegh. But here's the thing. He starts talking about nationalizing the oil industry of Iran, that the oil of Iran should belong to the people of Iran, that the proceeds from the oil sales should be spread amongst the people. And like, what does that start to sound like in the 1950s? Sharing and spreading profits, and this sounds like...
Well, what's next? They're going to go to a Grateful Dead concert?
Exactly, bunch of hippies and communists. And so that irritates the Brits, because of course the Brits said, hey, no, but all of the oil in the world is ours. And it seemed a little bit too left-wing for comfort for this new organization that had been formed in the States, the Central Intelligence Agency.
And what are the Brits like? Monarchies. And who was there in Iran to maybe install and put in power? The Shah?
Exactly. So it was all set up perfectly. All you needed to do was figure out a way to undermine this democracy and kind of like tip it over the cliff. And so the CIA launches Operation Ajax. Always start with a propaganda campaign. Propaganda is just super effective and cheap. And so the propaganda campaign tried to paint Mossadegh as this sort of dangerous, hardcore communist when he was actually pretty moderate. But also, just again, to make things a little spicier, they started paying mobs to cause violence and chaos in the country.
Oh, good people.
Yeah. Organizing and staging government protests. Sometimes, and this is wild, the CIA would organize an anti-government protest and a pro-government protest at the same time in the same place so that they would rumble.
Oh, wow. What a great way to stir up dysfunction in a country. You sort of back up both sides and let them fight it out.
Yeah, exactly. And in the midst of all of that chaos and violence and mayhem, understandably, the Iranian democracy collapsed. And then it was replaced eventually by a dictatorship, as you say, under the Shah. And then, of course, as we know, that dictatorship is eventually replaced by the totalitarian theocracy that Iran is today. And so there you go. A functioning democracy to a Handmaid's Tale-style nation in less than 40 years.
Yeah, congratulations to the UK and the CIA. You've done well.
Yeah, it went so, and it was a big success. It was one of their first big successes. Of course, as we know from our place in the future, eventually it would result in Iran becoming, a totalitarian theocracy. But at the time, seemed like a real W that they had racked up.
This seems to be like the history of countries where the CIA has interfered. A small shift just to align with their interests ends up with catastrophic problems many years later.
Yeah, in fact, it happens so often they had to come up with a term for it, which is blowback. That's when you've done an operation, and then years later, it comes back and bites you in some way, and innocent people get hurt who had no idea any of this was going on. And then at least you can say, oh, boss, we got some blowback from Operation Ajax.
Blowback is like a government version of fallout, which is like when a secret operation fails and there's something bad that happens.
Exactly. And we see this over and over and over again. Guatemala in 1954. The United Fruit Company didn't like the president at the time, Arbenz, because he was seizing land from wealthy people and corporations and giving it to landless peasants, which again, it's the 50s, that's communism. And he was allowing leftists to participate in politics because, it was a democracy. And so CIA again distributes propaganda, trains a rebel force, does a little bombing with some unmarked planes, and causes enough chaos that Arbenz resigned and gets replaced by a military junta. Now, that's an interesting one because that was the operation for which the CIA produced their very first ever assassination manual.
Wow. And that's the term from which Banana Republic comes. That's the coup from which Banana Republic comes.
Exactly, and that's what happens when the United Fruit Company is the political motivation behind you launching your coup.
When we come back with Nathan Radke, we will talk about the forgotten coup. This is the exciting part of what we're going to talk about. That time the U.S. was almost turned into a fascist dictatorship. I sort of vaguely learned about this one. I recently, researched it to talk to you, but it's kind of just like this amazing thing that almost happened in U.S. history that no one ever talks about. Nathan Radke is here. Check out his podcast, The Uncover Up Conspiracy Cast. We'll be back with more Conspiracy Corner in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Taste the forbidden fruit of knowledge. The last show with David Cooper.
We are back for Conspiracy Corner, discussing that time in history that almost seems forgotten when businessmen tried to turn America into a fascist dictatorship. This really happened in 1932. We're here to discuss with Professor of Conspiracy Studies at Humber Polytechnic, Nathan Radke. Check out his podcast, The Uncover Up Conspiracy Cast. Nathan, oi gewalt, what a pleasure it is to have you.
So I'm always happy to be on.
The Forgotten Coup. I love that as a description for what this was. It's crazy that a bunch of oligarchs, I mean, let's call them what they are, businessmen, almost overthrew the American government back in the 30s. It seems, well, I want to say it seems so far-fetched.
Yeah, I mean, it used to. I feel like maybe 5 years ago it seemed far-fetched, and now it seems fetched, close-fetched.
There's a very stinky musk in the current U.S. government that makes
see what you did there.
See what I did there? See what I did there?
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about this. I feel like this is something where we want to learn from history and we just forget.
Yeah. Well, it was 1932. Things were not going well. Great Depression had hit, stocks had crashed, banks had failed. There was an awful lot of people out of work. Now, a lot of those people out of work were World War I veterans. After that war had ended, the American government had promised to give them a bonus of about $600 to thank them for being shot at and getting shrapnel in their face. Doesn't seem like a lot, but back then, of course, it was worth something. The problem was that war ended in 1918, and the soldiers weren't going to collect their bonus until 1945, which is a long time to wait.
It's about $15K in today's dollars. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's not bad. I'd take it. And then once the Great Depression hit, of course, they wanted it sooner than that. And so 10,000 veterans and their families marched on Washington, D.C. and set up this massive shanty town to wait for their money. Now, because the president at the time was Hoover, this was called Hooverville. But instead of giving them their money, Hoover sent in the police, who handled things poorly and sort of ham-fistedly, shot and killed a couple of the veterans. And then the army was sent in with tanks and tear gas, and they burned Hooverville to the ground, which resulted in all sorts of injuries and the death of a baby.
Wow.
And so now you got 10,000 furious veterans. They've got a serious beef with the federal government. And they had a leader and a hero who had another one of those names that can only exist in the past. You hear this name, you think, oh, this is a story from the past, because his name was Smedley Butler.
It's like a guy out of a 1930s period piece, Smedley Butler.
Amazing. You can hear the mustache in the name. Now, Smedley had been a general in World War I, the most decorated Marine in history, and afterwards became a critic of the war and the reasons it was fought, arguing that it was nothing more than rich people sending poor people off to die to protect their business interests.
Isn't that every war in the history of war?
That was his argument. He said, I wasn't a hero, I was a racketeer for capitalism. And so then Hoover loses his election to FDR. FDR starts making some big sweeping changes to try to minimize the impact of the Depression. One of the things he does is he takes the American currency off the gold standard.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that irritates real rich people because rich people had gathered private fortunes, and they didn't like the idea that if you removed the currency from the gold standard, that inflation was more likely.
And it put the inflation in the hands of the government to control 100% completely.
Yeah, exactly. And so at this point, something pretty odd happens. There's this banker named Gerald McGuire, and he privately approaches Smedley, and he's got himself a proposal. He says, listen, I represent a number of wealthy industrialists, and I've been traveling in Europe to check out all these growing fascist movements in Italy and Germany. You know, they got this guy Mussolini, they got this guy Hitler, and McGuire had decided that fascism was good for business, and he wanted to bring it home to America.
Every time you say wealthy industrialist, I think H.E. Pennypacker, the wealthy industrialist, philanthropist, and bicyclist from Seinfeld, but whatever, not important. I'm with you. Keep going.
Yeah, so he tells Butler that if Butler goes to, Smedley Butler, that if he goes to the troops who respected him and trusted him, and if Smedley told those troops to march on D.C., they could take over Congress and the White House, they could eliminate FDR, and then Smedley would take over the government, and he would become America's Mussolini, or America's Hitler.
Wow. And this was before World War II, so the idea of America's Hitler didn't have some of the connotations we had today. These were movements that were happening in Europe that maybe Americans in 1932 were sort of admiring or wanting to echo, thinking maybe they could be good movements. Again, before World War II, not endorsing them. Does Smedley Butler succeed with this?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. This totally could have worked. The country was in terrible shape. People had lost faith in the institutions of power and government. Butler could easily have commanded the loyalty of thousands of troops. You don't need that many troops to pull off something like this.
It's just like we talked about in last segment. All you need, like with the Myanmar coup, Myanmar, the people who were controlling the gates at Parliament, they just let them in. As long as you get a small amount of people and no one opposing them, a small amount of armed people and no one opposing them means a complete government shift.
Yeah, and if you think about that, if America goes fascist in the 30s, there's no way they would have entered World War II against the fascist powers, which means then Germany takes over Europe, probably England as well. All of history has changed. It's all hinging on Smedley. But here's the thing. Those coup plotters, those businessmen, they had picked the wrong guy. Because Smedley disliked the way that the federal government was treating the veterans. But you know what he hated more?
What?
Fascism and wealthy industrialists.
Ah.
So he pretends to go along with the plot. He's like, oh yeah, this is a great idea. I would love to be America's Mussolini. He does a bunch more meetings. He secretly gathers up information. And then, instead of launching an assault on Congress, he delivers that information that he gathered to Congress.
Wow. So he essentially, if he had made a different decision on this, all of history could have been changed.
I mean, it is one of those times, and this is extraordinary. History is filled with these times where there is one person who makes a decision that ultimately changes the fate of millions of people.
Like that Russian dude who saw the nukes coming in from America during the Cold War and decided it was a radar glitch and decided not to launch nukes back at the U.S. If they had exchanged nukes back then, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't be sitting here discussing this.
No, we'd be sitting in a smoking radioactive crater talking about Stanislav Petrov.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how sometimes history hinges on these little bottleneck moments. And so after Smedley delivers all this information, which he had, done a good job of gathering, there was a hearing, a congressional hearing. And the conclusion was, quote, certain persons had made an attempt to establish a fascist organization in this country. There is no question that these attempts were discussed, were planned, and might have been placed in execution when and if the financial backers deemed it expedient.
Wow.
So this is not up for debate. This is a thing that happened. And because there was so much evidence and the names of the plotters were known, the number of people who were punished for the plot was...
0.
How did you guess?
God bless America.
That's amazing. Yeah, none of the plotters are called in to testify, and not a single one of them got in trouble.
But I guess by Congress knowing about it, they just kind of crawled back into their caves and didn't do anything, or...
Well, actually, some of them became extremely powerful and influential members of American society. One of the people allegedly was this fellow named Prescott Bush, one of the plotters who was trying to turn the country into a fascist dictatorship.
Please tell me that's not like the great-grandfather of George Bush.
I would like to tell you that.
Oh, boy.
But I can't tell you that.
Oh, boy.
Because he was.
God bless America.
God bless America. I mean, and the point is, from all of these stories, you wake up in the morning, you decide you're going to shoot a little video dancing to a banger of a tune, get your heart rate up. And the next thing you know, behind you in the video, out come the tanks and out come the trucks. And what you woke up in is not what you're going to go to sleep in, because you woke up in a democracy and you're going to sleep in a dictatorship.
Bravo. The way you tied that all together from beginning to end. And I sprung the Myanmar coup thing on you like we didn't talk about this beforehand, and yet you tied it together with a clean knot. I'm here with Nathan Radke, a conspiracy studies professor at Humber Polytechnic. Check out his podcast, the Uncover Up podcast. I said the word podcast, well, I guess 3 times now. Nathan.
You can't say it enough.
You can't. Thanks for joining me, my friend.
Thanks for having me on, and I hope we go to sleep in a democracy.
Yes, but if we don't, maybe we'll wake up and it'll be a beautiful sunny day and we can all do a little dance on camera. Up next, did you file your taxes on time? When was the last time you went to the dentist? Are there emails that you need to be sending? If you've been putting any or all of those things off, you need to adult up, and that's what we'll discuss on Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. Radio's only mental health segment intended for a Thursday night that broadcasts on a Wednesday night. We'll give you tips on how to handle all those annoying things that you got to do when you're an adult. That after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Your procrastination deserves a destination. Welcome to The Last Show with David Cooper.
Putting off doing your taxes. Haven't seen the doctor. Procrastinating putting off that... Procrastinating putting off? Procrastinating booking that dentist appointment. English, how does it work? This was a dramatic introduction. These are things we need to do as adults. And today's topic on Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday with Gary Direnfeld. Ooh, accuracy at about 60%. Is adulting up? Gary, welcome.
You didn't have your coffee, did you?
No. It's been a long day. Welcome. I love this topic because there's some invisible point that happens to everybody. Well, maybe not actually, but I hope this happens to everybody. Where your parents just stop taking care of things without you having to worry about them. Like when you're a 15-year-old kid, you got to go to the dentist. Your parent books it. You know, you got to be enrolled in school. Your parent does that. And there's all these like administrative things we have to do as adults.
That we just can't stand.
Yes. And your parents or whoever's around when you're a kid takes care of them behind the scenes. They feed you. Like you got to go to the grocery store, you know?
Don't you miss those days where you could be as irresponsible as you want, and yet there is someone, hopefully, there to, in a sense, catch you, push you, remind you.
And if you're 50 years old still living with your mother and they still do that for you, I'm actually worried about you.
That's a whole different set of topics.
Yeah, those people are for another conversation. I guess the tough love version is like adult up, get your stuff done. But we just don't, every year I've requested a tax extension. I end up filing my taxes a week or two, quote unquote, late. It's not late because I requested an extension, but like, why do I do this? Every year I say I'll do it. And then when tax day comes.
So you hit the snooze button of taxes.
Yeah. Well, I've taken to paying on time, which you need to do. So there's filing on time and paying on time. In the US, the IRS only cares if you pay on time. So like, let's say you owe $3,000.
Right.
On the due date, if you send them $3,000 and then file that return, they don't care.
They're happy.
But if you send them the $3,000 with the late return, they charge you interest. Not important. I didn't go to the dentist for 10 years, and it was a point of great tension between my girlfriend and I. Finally, I said, I need 6 months of flossing and brushing every day, twice a day.
Yeah, you had to clean your act up before they caught you.
Also, I didn't want there to be pain because when you go to the dentist and you have like gingivitis, you're bleeding, you're hurting, everything, every little thing hurts. I wanted my mouth to be in as best shape as possible. I ended up going. I had 3 or 4 cavities filled over the course of a month. And now I've been going every 6 months. And the last 6 months, they said to me, you're doing amazing. They had put a couple spots in my mouth to watch. Like they weren't quite cavities yet, but they were like points of concern. And they said the points were healing. And then I didn't need to get fillings. I'm rambling at this point. But you can get back on that train, Gary.
First of all, I'm going to the dentist. I have never, ever been a good dental patient. You're right.
What about a mental patient?
My parents would drag. I remember as a kid, first of all, I'm old enough at 69, that the dental equipment, the drill, it was run through a series of bands that connected finally to the motor.
Like gears?
Yeah, almost. And the noise that it would... true confessions, I was that kid in the dental chair that bit, scratched, and spit.
Bit, scratch, spit. You bat, scratched, and spat.
Yeah, my parents had to take me to a specialist, a pediatric dentist, where for whatever reasons, they just got me to sit still. And I got a little toy from this magic drawer at the end of it, and it worked. So here I am. I'm an adult. I do go regularly. I really do. I still don't like sitting in that chair. To use your phrase, I adult up.
Yes. when you have this pile of things that you're procrastinating on, for example, I have one I need to do right now. We did a little bit of like work on my apartment when we moved in.
Yep.
And we hired a contractor. They kind of finished the job, but I told the contractor I have a punch list. If anyone who knows what a punch list is, I feel sorry for you because you've either...
I've never heard that phrase before. What is that?
It's like in construction. Do you know I used to work for a construction technology company?
No.
Yeah, I worked for like a heavy construction technology company for...
Now, I know that you worked in technology, but I didn't know construction.
The company's called Autodesk. They make a product called AutoCAD, but they also make heavy construction products, and that's what...
Okay.
But so I know this stuff from my old job. I don't know why I'm rambling. The rambling is the real topic of today's Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. Rambling Thursdays on a Wednesday. I don't know. Anyway, a punch list is that final list. Maybe I'm defining this wrong, but in this context, as I know it, maybe someone in construction is going to roll their eyes and say, oh, it's not quite that. But it's that final list of a job. Usually it's a clipboard on a wall. It's sort of like a checklist.
So the little scratches to paint over, the nail heads to sink.
Touch up the paint. This screw's loose. It's that final, and then, once it's all done, the job's quote unquote done. And I told my contractor I'd put together a punch list with photos, and that was like 2 weeks ago, and I haven't done it, and he's been texting me every day because he wants the guys, his dudes. It's actually men and women who are the laborers, so that's kind of interesting. But
okay,
he wants the people to come in.
It's a whole new world. Apropos that, I was posting just the other day because we're coming to the end of another school year, and many parents are ushering their kids to university, and I'm singing the praises of the trades. And it doesn't matter what gender or how you identify. The trades are great places to be employed in. Anyway, sorry for that. I digress.
No, it's true. I mean, I imagine this is what these contractors charge. It's like...
But listen, it fits. Adult up.
Fine, I'll send him the punch list today, Gary. Jeez.
Yeah, and I'll be sitting in that dentist chair. I will be practicing meditation. I started meditating when I was about 21. Transcendental meditation.
Is it easy to meditate when the drill's going?
Because look, I'm 69, started at 21, do the math.
You keep saying 69 and I'm not taking the bait, Gary.
I've been meditating for so long that it is easy. So I can sit in that chair and I can be elsewhere. Thank goodness. That's my strategy. But that, again, adult up, which I prefer, by the way, over man up. God, that's such a toxic masculinity phrase. I like adult up.
Okay, we've just rambled for 8 or 9 minutes to just give a helpful advice for the listener. Like a moral, like someone's glad they made it this far. Meditative practice. Okay, so when I'm putting together this punch list and taking photos of scratches and places where the wallpaper needs more glue, all that, I just focus on my breathing? Is that the tip?
Listen, that's part of it. There's a phrase that I think I coined it. I don't know. But I love this phrase, and it's relax into the mess. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Relax into the mess. You got this stuff to do. It can overwhelm. For me, it's the dentist. It can scare. It can frighten. Those things that we seek to avoid. Relax into the mess. And as you kind of relax into it, I think that does help with adulting up. There are those things, David, that scare us. And so I will want to talk a bit about systematic desensitization.
Ooh, now there's something. I feel like we've hit the meat of the crux of it. Systematic desensitization and adulting up with Gary Direnfeld. It's Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday, probably. I don't even know what this is anymore. We'll be back with more Loosey Goosey Radio in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. last show with David Cooper. Procrastinate your life away with us.
It's Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. It's radiotherapy with Gary Direnfeld. We are talking adulting up, the idea that as adults we have these stressful things, these things we procrastinate on, and we just don't do them. Strategies for doing them, and then strategies for coping while doing them. Gary's example, the dentist, his way for dealing with it, meditating while the drill's going, and he's getting 75 cavities filled because he doesn't brush his teeth. Gary, welcome back to the show.
You know, you told the story that after 10 years, you wanted to floss and do your teeth beautifully for 6 months before you saw the dentist. I use the same strategy. Like, I want to make sure that my teeth are as good as they can be prior to seeing the dentist. So in between, I floss like a madman several times a day, brush my teeth a couple of times, put those things, those toothpicky things between my teeth. I do all this stuff just so we don't have to drill.
Yes. Well, they're going to have to drill anyway. I actually don't find it that uncomfortable. I usually lie when they're like, oh, does it hurt after they freeze you? They'll start drilling and they'll say, does it hurt? And then I'll say, yeah, even though it doesn't really hurt. So I get the double shot of Novocaine or whatever, the freezing. And then my mouth isn't moving for the whole day. I just really don't want to feel it. But the sound of it and the sensation while I'm numb, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Well, I also, from time to time, depending on the procedure, have used the gas.
Gas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Full disclosure. Yeah, I've been gassed.
There are few times in life we get to use psychedelic substances under the direction... Legitimately under the direction of a doctor and not illegally. That is one of them. If you have trouble coping, go for the gas.
So in my private practice, I'm retired, but when I was active in my practice, I would get those calls every now and again from parents whose kids were like me. And, how do we get those kids into the dentist chair? And that's where I would talk about systematic desensitization and say, look, you're going to have to work with your dentist on this. And all you want to do is go to the dentist several times in a month, only to sit in the chair, only to look at the equipment, only to hear the sounds of the office, just so that you can, in a sense, desensitize your child to the experience. Heck, we use the same strategy for our dog, which on Victoria Day coming up, those fireworks, we lived near a park where they let off the big ones. The first year that he was with us as a pup, he went nuts with the bangs and the booms. Then Canada Day was coming. I went to YouTube, and with our television and the sound system, at very low volume, I started playing fireworks. And then day by day, week by week, started increasing the volume and the intensity. Now he can sleep through fireworks. So this systematic desensitization, this gradually being exposed to that which frightens us, so that in the end, we can adult up.
Exposure therapy. I mean, it's the same.
Exactly.
It's the same thing.
Arose by any other name.
So one strategy I do, especially for tasks like sending emails. I mean, it's always that email you're putting off sending.
Yes.
I finally sent an email that I put off sending. Well, yesterday I had this email I needed to send, and I just asked ChatGPT to write a skeleton of it. I hated what ChatGPT wrote. I rewrote it myself, but it laid out what the structure and the points are. It's so specific, not really the broad example here, but for me, sometimes it's like, okay, I'll do this activity for 10 minutes. And if after 10 minutes I want to stop, I'll stop. And I almost never stop. Once I'm in it, I just get it done. Some people do it for 5 minutes. It's just start the thing and say to yourself, you can quit. If you still want to quit, if you still want to procrastinate, you can. Just do it for 5 minutes. You can commit to that, right?
And so you're raising another issue, childhood, adulthood, and that is of procrastinating. There are those, sometimes there are little things that are not seemingly consequential, so we don't get around to them even though we want to. Heck, I can show you my office. It's a mess. I keep saying I'm going to clean it up, yet, it just keeps falling off the list. So this adult up thing can also apply to procrastination. We all have our inner chatter, the words inside of our heads, our inside voice. That's where we sometimes have to take control, dominate, and look at those words and say, you know what, I need to change them. And sometimes I suggest to people, write yourself like a Post-it. So you're not writing a letter, you're not journaling, and the Post-it is just a reminder. I use my Google Calendar as a Post-it depository from time to time. So I'll put in Google Calendar the things that I want to get done on a particular day. So there's something about something popping up in front of us that can keep us on track and help us to adult up.
I like it. You're reminding me of like gratitude journaling. Other things you've put off, Gary, cleaning up's a big one. I mean, I've got boxes I haven't unpacked. I have a box filled with broken glass and paint in like little glass, not paintings, but pictures that I want to hang. There's about 8 of them.
Yeah.
6 or maybe 3 of them are broken, and they're in a cardboard box. And when I moved across the country from California to New York, I put them in a box. They broke during shipping, so I just sealed the box with duct tape, and I wrote "caution, broken glass" and pictures on the box. I've moved 3 times. This box is still, it just has moved with us. And every time we move, my girlfriend's like, what are you doing? Why do you have this box? Unpack the box, deal with it. I still haven't done it.
First of all, I firmly believe virtually every couple has one of those boxes. And you just pressed on my nerve because I got one sitting in the other room that, it's not broken glass, but it's the same.
Boxes.
That is something that's in my calendar now. I have nothing but free time, and yet I squander it.
So do as we say, not as we do, is what we're saying here.
Exactly. Well, this is part of being an adult. I don't know anyone who isn't guilty for some form of procrastination. And anyone that tells you that they don't, oh man, you just got to look around their house for a little bit.
I have this thing where if I have this is like so off topic. I mean, I guess it's not off topic. When I have a list of 10 things to do and they're all important, but the first one is like so much more important, I'll procrastinate that first one. But I'm so anxious and I need to get something done, I will blow through those other 9. So when I have a big ticket item that I'm putting off and I need to get done and the deadline's approaching, I'm actually my most productive. I get so much done. I just don't get the big ticket item done. And as soon as I get the big ticket item done, my productivity goes down again. It's sort of a maladaptive trait. It's like I have to do something. I can't bear to do it, but I can't bear to do nothing because I got this big thing to do. So I'm so productive.
Right. You discharge that frenetic energy elsewhere.
Yeah, so that the sum of the small tasks equals the big one, but I still got to do the big one.
I like your thinking.
It's like procrastinating priority 1 by doing priority 3, 4, 1, 2, all the other things.
There are many folks who are going to miss not having that parent tapping them on the shoulder saying, when are you going to do this? Like some people complain that their spouse fulfills that role, and then that becomes a whole other issue between them. But in terms of our topic, adulting, I can't even say that 10 times, adulting up. We started talking about seeing the dentist. There are those things that overwhelm. Relax into the mess. Systematic desensitization. Meditation.
Wow. We've just tied that up so nicely. Gary, another free-form odyssey with mental health and therapy talking points. And it was a great pleasure to have you. Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. You can find Gary Direnfeld at yoursocialworker.com. Gary, thank you again.
All the best.
That's the show. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow night. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show, or at least it was. There'll be a new show tomorrow of The Last Show. It's confusing.